Okay, gentlemen. Right. I'm going to be looking this way only because there's only. Yeah. Do you want to stand on the other side? It just evens things out. Thanks, Ivor. Say hello to everybody. Right. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Spread the gaze in.
Spread the gaze. Okay. Right. I'd like to start with some not so nice news, and just to wish everyone Chai Maruchim about it. Very sad. Our dear friend Bernard Morris. Hello, everybody. Our dear friend Bernard Morris. Do you remember Bernard Morris used to come to shul here?
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago, about a few years ago. Yeah. So he was very unwell and he had a heart attack. Yeah, and he's passed away tonight. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Did you hear they passed away?
Yeah. Ian told me. Yeah.
Ian told you. Yeah, it was very, very sad. So, we wish his whole family. Hi, sorry. We wish his whole family Chai Maruchim, and we should have a lichtige Gan Eden. He's a man who made a lot of changes in his life, and he came a long way.
Yes.
We're gonna. I spoke about it earlier, so I'm not going to speak about it now. But we read about people. Maybe this bit I didn't discuss, so maybe we'll discuss it tonight. We read about Rivka. And Rivka went against the tide. It's not so easy to go against the tide. Rivka came from a place where her father was an evil person, her brother was an evil person, the country that she lived in was a terrible place, and she still became Rivka. She became this wonderful woman. She became the matriarch of her. And it's not so easy because, generally speaking, people follow their surroundings. People do what the people in their surroundings do. If people around you behave, you behave. If people around you are rude, then it rubs off on you. And the Rambam tells us that people behave. That's why a person has to make sure to find good friends. That's why a person has to make sure to be in good company, to find the right kind of community, to find the right kind of city. If you live in a city that's full of evil, after a while, that evil starts rubbing off on you. You also start behaving like that. And even if you don't start behaving like that, it still rubs off on you. Somebody said to me recently, I'm not sure how many people will or won't agree with this. You can comment on it if you want to as well. Somebody said to me, says, where do you get your news? What news outlet do you use? So I said, well, actually, I don't really use a news outlet so much. I listen to radio. So much so, I'll tell you an embarrassing story. I was part of the Memorial Sunday this year, and the Rep Council asked me to represent the Jewish community, and I had a speaking part. And afterwards, we went in, just said goodbye to everybody. And as I'm leaving, I found somebody that could give me a lift back. As I'm leaving, this lady goes, ooh, ooh, and she gets her kids to stand next to this fellow, and she takes a picture of the guy. And I go, yeah, very nice. And we start walking. She goes, and I voted for him. I said, what do you mean you voted for him? She's like, Rabbi, have you no idea who this is? I'm like, no. She says, that's the mayor of Manchester. I said, oh, it's Andy Burnham. Okay. I know who the mayor of Manchester is, just don't know him by sight. Yeah. They don't send any pictures on the radio. That's the idea. Yes. I keep on top of what's going on in the world. I keep on top of the news. But if you don't get a picture that comes with it,
you can see these people in the street or
they'd walk straight past me.
You'd never know. Yeah.
You'd never know if somebody says that's Andy Burnham. Oh, I know Andy Burnham. So I went back and I said hello, etc., etc. So somebody asked me that, where do you get your news from? I says I don't really get my news from any newspaper. I don't read any of these, some of these blog websites or whatever. I listen to BBC 5 Live. That's basically what I listen to. I used to listen to Radio 4 in my old car. Because my old car, no, you're laughing, because my old car was a British car. And because it was a British car, so it had the ability to get any frequency of British frequencies. My current car is an import, a Japanese import. And because it's a Japanese import, it has different frequencies. You got the FM frequencies for Japan, which go all the way up to, who's here? The FM frequency for Japan makes it all the way till 93.
Oh,
and that's it.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're just that bit short.
Yeah, loads of stations past there. Yeah.
The loads of stations past there, almost everything past there. Like,
Yeah.
you know, what are you going to listen to? I think it's going to be. And
Very
again, I'm not
soon.
going to listen to any music stations and everything. If I'm listening to a station, I'm going to listen. So I've started listening to 5 Live. So somebody said to me, he says, "Oh, it's a terrible thing to listen to 5 Live." I said, "Why?" He says, "Because their opinions, the BBC's opinions, start rubbing off on you. You start thinking a little bit like them because they you know, the anti-Israel bias that goes with it or whatever. You know, they just said it's not a good idea. You should find yourself a different news outlet that's got a more positive slant. That's not such a liberal news outlet." He says you might not realize it, but after a while, their opinions and their thoughts and their ideologies start to come into your mind. What do you think of that?
They claim it's balanced.
Pardon?
The BBC claim that they're balanced.
Every news station in the world claims that they're balanced. There's no such thing as a news station that says we are slanted.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to tell you that.
No, in your mind, you argue against it. Yeah.
You do argue against it. I sit there and I listen to it sometimes and I get upset listening.
Newspapers will admit that they've got a bias.
Newspapers have it. Newspapers more than anything. They really have an agenda.
Yeah.
Lots of newspapers have an agenda, and they'll tell you they have an agenda.
Yeah, but it's known and it's unaccepted that certain newspapers.
Certain newspapers are very left-leaning. Certain newspapers are very right-leaning. That's just the way it is.
That's right. Yeah. And people buy papers that correspond with their way of thinking.
That's right.
And it echoes what they're thinking.
It echoes what they're thinking. So, you know, certain people, like, you know, what they call them, the red tops. Yeah. They are, pardon?
Yes,
They are geared to a certain public, and that public is going to be the main public that will read those newspapers, that will buy those newspapers. They're not going to be. They're not geared at a different clientele. And another clientele, you know, they'll pick up the newspaper and go, "What is this trash?" You know, somebody else picks up and says, "This isn't trash. This is interesting," right? Big headlines, lots of sports, some women. You know, it's brilliant. It's perfect for them as far as they're concerned. You know, we turned around and we said, "This is not really what I had in mind. When I wanted something a little bit more intelligent, I wanted something a little bit more substantial." But again, every newspaper appeals to their readership. But the point is that Rivka went against the tide, and that's really what I was feeling very much about. People who become more religious, especially when they don't come from a religious background, have gone against the tide. They have done something that's very, very difficult. It's hard because sometimes or often their friends ignore them. "Oh, you've gone off from, you're not fun anymore," right? Why? Because you won't come to a non-kosher restaurant with you, so go eat out at a kosher restaurant. "I don't want to eat by the kosher restaurant all the time. It's the same food again and again and again." Tough, you know what I mean? There's more to life than eating out. And it's gotten boring also. Every time we just start discussing things, he goes, "Excuse me, you're talking Lashon Hara." Yeah? It's very hard. It's very hard because you start changing your life and you start changing your attitudes and you start changing the kind of person that you are. And then suddenly what happens is that your friends look at you and they go, "I don't recognize you anymore." And you look at your friends and you go, "I don't recognize you that much anymore either." We don't have that much in common. It's very, very hard for somebody to become a Baal Tshuva, for somebody to change around their entire life and to change the way they lived and become a different person and to give up on their past takes a tremendous strength of character. It goes against who we are as human beings. And therefore, I mean, that's just part to do with the Parasha also. And that's why, you know, when you think of Bernard Oliver Shalom, you know, you should have a Lichting Gan Eden Bernard. You really should. But I think about him and I think about the fact that he was able to change his life around, like Rivka Imenu, in the face of never having grown up with this. It not being who he was. That's an amazing thing. That's a tremendous thing.
He really worked on himself.
He really did work on himself.
Yeah.
He became a different person. And he started in the shul, and it was great for him in the shul. And after a while, he came to me, he says, "Rabbi, I can't stand it." I said, "What?" I said, I can't bear the talking. I can't handle it. Yeah. I said to him, I said, "Bernard, then you've outgrown our shul, and you need to move on somewhere else where they don't talk as much." I said, "Look, it'd be great to be able to say that our shul did almost no talking. But knowing our membership and knowing our members and knowing who we are, it's not going to happen so quickly. So if it really disturbs you, you need to pick yourself up and you need to move to another community where there's less talking." And he did that. Well, even though he was so comfortable with us, he moved on to Or Yerushalayim.
Yeah. Well, that was only a fragment of it. It's all different facets of his character he worked on as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many different things.
The impetus to change. What gave him the impetus to change?
I don't know. It just kind of felt. It just felt that was the way to go. I don't know.
And slowly but surely became from and from. He loved coming to shul.
Yeah.
He loved people. He loved Torah way. He loved, the people.
Learning, he
loved a lot of things, and he did amazing things. It really is an amazing thing that the way he changed his life and what he did what he did with his life is an amazing thing. And so therefore, to dedicate tonight's shir in Burnham's memory, Alav Shalom, and as we said, he's just passed away, so he's not had a levaya yet. I think the levaya will be. Yerushalayim said they want to do something here before he goes to Leeds. He had been paying burial in Leeds. He'd probably be buried in Leeds, but you should, you should have a lichting Gan Eden. You should get his reward for the fact that he did so much, that he was willing to change himself around in such an amazing big way. He really deserves tremendous reward for that. Okay, that's part one. Now, we'll move on to the next thing. Sorry. The Eile Toldos Yitzchak ben Avram. These are the children. These are the offspring of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. Avram, holy is Yitzchak. Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. What do we mean with Avram, holy is Yitzchak? Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. If Yitzchak is the son of Avram, Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. Of course he did. Yeah, that's a tautology. Yeah? Do you know what tautology is? I don't have to tell you. Yeah.
I don't think it's a tautology.
Pardon? You don't think so?
I don't think that's a tautology.
Why not? Go on, Rod. I knew it. I knew I would. He used a fancy word, and Roger just sits there going,
no.
No. Thank you, Rabbi. Next time, take out the dictionary and read it properly. Yeah, go on. Is it not tautological to say that if Yitzchak is the son of Avram, that Avram had Yitzchak as a child? From the first half of the verse and the second half of the verse.
I couldn't apologize more. I thought you were just talking about the last.
No, the last sentence on its own is not a tautology. It's the two sentences together. The fact that, if Yitzchak is the son of Avram, then Avram has to be the father of Yitzchak. That was the point. Sorry. Okay. I appreciate it. Yes, I feel vindicated. I'm feeling vindicated. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Feeling vindicated now. It was worth it, right? There we go, right? Says Rashi, an important comment. Rashi explains, Avram had a child called Yitzchak. Of course, we just said that, right? We know this all along. So Rashi explains is that there used to be people that were the Leitzanei Hador. They were the scoffers, they were the mockers, they were the ones that used to make fun of everything, they used to take everything apart, the cynics. And they said, you know what happened? It's a very strange story that happened over here. Sarah Imenu, our matriarch Sarah, gets kidnapped by Avimelech. For years and years and years, her and Avram have been trying, quite about 70 years or something like that. They've been trying for kids and nothing doing. She gets kidnapped by Avimelech. A few months later, guess what? She's pregnant. And everybody goes, Avram's child. And the cynics go, right, sure. No, this isn't Avram's child. You know whose child this is. This child must have come from Avimelech. Says the Torah, we didn't want to leave Avram hanging like that. We didn't want Avram Avinu to be looked at in that way. And therefore the Torah says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a nes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a miracle. And you know what the miracle is? Avram, holy this Yitzchak. He made Yitzchak look exactly like Avram. And so that people walk by and used to go, you're a spinning image of your father.
Yeah.
He goes, I am. Yeah. You must be from Avram's family. How'd you guess? Was it the yarmulke or the beard? Nobody else in those days wore a yarmulke. It was like, it's not like I remember you used to go to yeshiva and some of the guys used to come to you in yeshiva. He says, I'm looking for a guy. Who you looking for? He's got a beard and glasses. Yakov. And you're like, you open up the door and there's like 1,000 beards and jackets sitting there going, choose one. Could you be a little bit more specific, sir? Yeah, it just doesn't do it, beard and glasses. But here, this was the only Jewish guy around. So in order that people shouldn't make fun of Avram Avinu and people should not say that this is not Avram Avinu's son, the Torah tells us, Avram, holy is Yitzchak, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made Yitzchak look like Avram Avinu so that nobody would make fun of him and nobody would say these kind of things about him. Yeah? So I heard tonight the following question, the following idea. He says, it doesn't make sense. Avram had a child already. What was Avram's child called? Yishmael. Therefore, if Avram had a child already, what does that tell me about Avram Avinu?
Nothing wrong with him.
Nothing wrong with him.
Yeah.
He's fertile. Not only that, he got Hagar pregnant twice, as we know. You know, the Medrash tells us the first time Hagar got pregnant and she got kicked out by Sarah, she lost her child, and then the Malach says to her, you will become pregnant, you will have a child. That's a second pregnancy. So Avram Avinu got Hagar pregnant twice, even though there was only one child, but he got her pregnant twice. Avram Avinu is saying, they're going, I'm okay. Yeah. And everybody says, yeah, he's okay. That can't be him. He can't have the issue. So who has the issue? Sarah. Well, if Sarah has the issues, why is everybody saying now, oh, look at that. One night Sarah Imeinu is with Avimelech, and everything changes around. This must be Avimelech's child. So much so that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives it the credibility to change around the facial features of Yitzchak, that Yitzchak should look like Avraham Avinu, when the entire thing doesn't make any sense. Yeah? But that's the power of cynicism. And that is the power of the naysayers, and that is why we need to be so careful with cynicism. Again and again, there are people that are cynical. They make and they poke fun of everything. And you can have the most serious conversation. You can have the most serious point. Do you remember when we spoke about the bar mitzvah?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. It was late on a Shabbos afternoon. You know, I what's called? I said it was a joke that we had, and it went on for quite a few weeks. Basically, what happened was that I said, like, you know, imagine there was a Rav that got up and he gave a great sermon and with a great message. And I'm not talking about myself now. It's a great sermon, a great message, and everybody loved it. And one wants to turn around to the other person and wants to say, "Oh, I was so inspired by it." And he turns to his friend and he goes, "That was such an inspiring sermon. I can't believe it how the Rabbi put that together and how it all fit together. And it was really a great message and everything." And his friend says, "Did you hear?" He says, "Mitzvah." Like a stutter, got a mitzvah, you know? Yeah?
That's all he heard, yeah.
That's all he heard. But you know what happens once you say that? All you remember about the entire sermon is mitzvah. Yeah? The whole sermon, the point of the sermon, the whole message, the whole lesson, it's all gone out the window. And all you do now is laugh about that poor rabbi and the way he says mitzvah. Yeah? And it became a joke because we were going to wish somebody mazel tov on their bar mitzvah, right? A week later with a very, very big bar mitzvah. And nobody would have known what it was all about. And the few people that came to Pirkei Avos at Charles Schutter's time would have all had a good laugh, but we didn't do that. I didn't think it was right. But the point of that is, you can have somebody that gives such a good message, somebody that imparts so much wonderful knowledge, and it takes one joke, it takes one comment to take the entire thing and let out the air out of the balloon. You're left with nothing. From being such an amazing, amazing, inspirational talk, it's changed around, and now you have nothing. And that's, it's a very, very scary thing. And here Avram Avinu, holy as Yitzchak, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you have to be careful. You have to watch the cynics, because they look for the problems. They look for the issues. I've said this a few times about newspapers, right? And I'm not talking about a specific newspaper, because a lot of newspapers do this. Shoot first, ask questions later. Yeah? Sometimes you get a scoop on someone, and they go ahead and they're so excited, we got a scoop on someone, we'll find out, and we'll write an article, and we'll drag them through the dirt, etc., etc. And they write the article, and the person suddenly opens up the newspaper and goes, oh my goodness me. Look what they wrote about me. It's very, very distressing. I don't know if anybody's ever had this. Thank God I've never had it. I got close, but I never had it. I remember there was I've told this story before, but there was an asifa, there was a gathering that the very ultra-Orthodox community had about internet, the usages of internet, and the dangers of internet, right? Like you guys who are watching now, right? Just kidding. Yeah, the dangers of the internet. And they gave out a letter for everyone to sign about the dangers of the use of the internet and how people shouldn't use the internet, only if they have a permission, etc., etc. And they passed it around to different rabbonim. We were all sitting together at this meeting, and they passed it around, and it came my way, and I had to read through it, and I said, there is no way I'm signing this. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't speak to our community. This is not who we are. I didn't sign it. And then it went around to a whole bunch of other people. I remember there's a few people, most people signed it. I didn't sign it. A few other Rabbanim of our type of communities didn't sign it. And what then happened was the following. They had to change around the wording of this, the takana that they had written, that they had signed. And then they had to go back and show it to everybody, and they had to get everybody to sign it again. And what happened was they ran out of time, and they couldn't get everyone to sign it again. So what they did was they just imposed all the signatures on there, including some people that had never signed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The new version. Yeah.
On the new version.
Mm-hmm.
And included in that new version were yours truly and Rabbi Gutentag of Whitefield. Yeah. And I was with Rabbi Saunders, and he was speaking to the editor of the paper. It was a Wednesday, and the editor of the paper said to him, "Oh, you cannot imagine what a scoop we've got for this week. Front page news." He said, "Front page news? What is it?" He goes, "Rabbi Eisenberg and Rabbi Gutentag have told their respective communities they should stop using the internet, and they are forbidding them from using the internet." Front page news, right? And Rabbi Saunders says, well, funny enough, it was such providence, because we were at a chief rabbi's conference in London, and Rabbi Saunders was speaking to me and Rabbi Gutentag about something, and just then he got the phone call. And he's like, well, funny enough, I'm actually standing next to Rabbi Eisenberg and Rabbi Gutentag now. Would you like to take a comment from them? He says, yeah, I would. So he turns around and he says to me, and he says to Rabbi Gutentag, by the way, on the phone here is so-and-so. They're about to put an article, front page article, about you two forbidding your communities to use the internet. What do you have to say about it? To which I said, I never signed it. And Rabbi Gutentag says, and I second that. I also never signed it. He said, really? That can't be. Your signatures are on there. I said, no. If you can get me the piece of paper that has my signature on it, I will back down and you can write that front page article. But bring me that piece of paper. The fact that it's been printed with my name, and my name was towards the top, because my name starts with Aleph. So I was like the first signature on there. Like, first signatory, David Eisenberg. There it is. Yeah. I said, bring me the piece of paper that I signed, and I will eat my own words. Right? But until you show me that piece of paper, I am telling you, I never signed that paper. And guess what? Rabbi Gutentag says, and I also never signed that paper. And what was even more interesting with Rabbi Gutentag is, by the way, what is Rabbi Gutentag's Hebrew name? His English name is Rabbi Jonathan Gutentag, and therefore his Hebrew name is? Correct, it's Nachum Nosson, right? His Hebrew name is nothing to do with Jonathan. His Hebrew name is Rav Nachum Nosson Gutentag. It was signed on the piece of paper as Yonason, right? So I looked at it and I said, and I showed it to Rabbi Zonas. I said, look, Rabbi Gutentag wouldn't sign his name incorrectly. They've not even written his name. Yeah? And so the editor said, okay, we have to pull the page. We have to pull it. And they pulled it from the front page, and it went on page 12. It didn't become a headline, and basically what then became, instead the story became that our signatures were forged. Okay? Which, all right, big deal. People read it, moved on. Right? But if I had been on the front page, that I had forbidden our community to use the internet, I can imagine that being big news. Yeah?
It would have been the Jewish Telegraph.
Pardon? It would have been the Jewish Telegraph.
Yes, yeah.
How did you guess? How did you guess, Alan? I was trying to keep the anonymity. Yeah? But you guessed it. Would you believe it? Right? So what the problem was with that whole story is, instead of them coming to us and saying, do you have a comment to make? Yeah? Let's write the headline first. Let's see if they have anything to say for themselves later. Yeah? They could have easily gotten my telephone number. And I guarantee you they have the telephone number of Rabbi Gutentag. I guarantee it. They never came to us. Shoot first, ask questions later. Yeah, that's how newspapers go. And then guess what? What do they do if they have to make an apology? Page 15, font size 8.
Yeah.
We regret, we apologize. You know, they don't give you a headline. We were wrong. You'll never get a headline from a newspaper. We were wrong. You get an apology in very small font somewhere on page 15. Whereas when they had their big scoop, it was in font size 48 on the front page, and everybody read about it. Nobody's going to know about your apology, right? If you were really out for the truth, if you really wanted to know the truth, you would make sure that you got the truth 100% before you print it. Yeah? Similarly, I've had cases where people have printed op-ed articles having a moan about something, right? Where I was involved, my name wasn't on it, but I was involved in the communal organization of certain things. And whoever it was having a moan about the fact that, you know, oh, they think X, Y, and Z. Why did you write an article? Why didn't you call us to ask the question why you think we did it that way? And we could have given you a good reason why we did it that way, and then you wouldn't be able to write your article and you wouldn't be able to have a moan. Because the point is, but I have to write an article by the end of this week, whether I like it or not. And this way, I'll have my moan first and I'll ask the questions later. Yeah? That is the danger of cynicism. That is the danger in social media sometimes, right? I was listening to somebody giving a share about this. He said, this is a person that is very, very highly involved in cases of children that have gone off the derech, in cases of children that have been abused. Many, many different things he's involved in like that. And he said that he gave a share on Tisha B'Av, and at that share on Tisha B'Av, he said the following. He said, to those who are victims of abuse, sadly, I'd like to tell you the following. Make sure you don't feel that you're a victim. You're a survivor. There's a very, very big difference in the attitude of saying I am a victim or I am a survivor. I am a victim is a negative way of looking at yourself. I am a survivor is a positive way of looking at yourself. I am not going to let these people get me down. I'm not going to let these people who have done these terrible, horrible things to me make me feel like dirt. I am a survivor. I'm not a victim. Right? That was part of a big share that he gave. By the end of Tisha B'Av, somebody had cut out 3 minutes of his shir where he said that. The entire shir was about giving these people chizuk. He had cut out 3 minutes of that shir. He had put it on the internet. There were hundreds of thousands of views. People were going crazy. How could this guy say such a thing? How could he be so insensitive? He wasn't being insensitive. He wasn't telling all the, it came across basically as if he was saying to all the people, what, you had abuse? Big deal. Get over it. That's not what he said. What he said was, of course it's a big deal. But if you let it ruin your life as opposed to standing up straight and saying, I want to be a survivor, I want to be somebody that can move on from this, as opposed to somebody that will forever be bogged down by this, then you're a winner. Whereas if you get forever held back by it, then you're letting this person ruin your life. Don't let this person ruin your life. Of course it's terrible what happened to you. Of course we're not making light of what happened to you. Of course it should never, ever happen, and we should never, ever excuse it. But if you're able to take the strength and move on, it will be the best thing for you. That's what he was trying to say. He says, but people didn't listen to him. And then he gave an explanation, and that went wrong also. And he had, people, and he said, I had such agmas nefesh. I had such trouble from all that. People weren't willing to ask the question. People didn't want to look. People didn't want to hear what I had to say. All they wanted to do is to find a fault, and they found the fault.
I think we have to remember also, that cynical people need help. Because some people are cynical because it helps them to live with themselves.
Yes, that is true. It is true. And I know people that make light of everything because they have their own personal issues. Their own personal issues drag them down so much that the only way they can survive is by making light of everything. And when they make light of everything, they feel better, right? So yes, that is true to say. There are plenty of cynical people who could use a good dose of help. But there are those people that make their living out of being cynical, and it's not a good thing. And there are those people that want to be cynical just because they enjoy being cynical. They enjoy the joke and everything out of it. And that is where it gets dangerous. Yeah? They enjoy, that is where you have to be careful.
Do you really think they enjoy it, though?
I don't know. It's a good question. That is a good question. Maybe some people, maybe nobody really enjoys the, although having said that, there are lots of people that enjoy a good Lashon Hara. Yeah? They enjoy, to really think, is it so nice to talk about other people? I agree with you. It's sad. It's sad that some people are happy with it. But
I've seen rehabilitated people.
Yes.
Who, having been rehabilitated, are less cynical than they were.
That is quite possible. Yeah, because they have sorted themselves out, and in sorting themselves out, they also they go through their issues, and they're able to come out of those issues.
Letter writing to the paper edits the letter, and it can have a different.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, so it's also you have to be careful with that as well. So I don't know, but moving on with this cynical thing, it's actually interesting because then I saw another thing which was interesting. It says we see that the next verse tells us Yitzhak had to pray for his wife because she was an akara, because she was a barren woman, and God listened to him, and Rivka became pregnant. And it's brought, some of the Mefarshim say something very interesting. Right before Rivka left in last week's Parasha, you have an article, so you have an article, you don't have an article, so I can't give you a page. But if you want to look in the article, if you look in last week's Parasha on page 118, it'll be verse 60, verse Samach, chapter 24, verse 60. Rivka, hi Stuart, thanks for joining us. They blessed Rivka and said to her, our sister, may you be thousands and tens of thousands. If you've ever been to a chuppah and been into the badeking, that is what we say by the badekin. Every time there's a badekin, that's the blessing that we give to the kala. Yeah? Beautiful blessing. So we see it as a beautiful positive blessing given to us by Lavan Arami. However, some of the Mefarshim say that the reason Sarah was barren, the reason Rivka couldn't have children is because we didn't want people to say, do you know why she had children? Do you know why Rivka Imenu was so okay? Because she had a brother called Lavan, and her brother called Lavan gave her blessing. And Lavan's blessing was such a potent blessing, and that is why Rivka had children. And again, it's funny because it's taking reality and twisting it. It's again coming back to this twisted reality we were talking about before. You have someone by the name called Yitzhak. This is a man who was willing to sacrifice himself for God, who went up on the altar, who was tied up, and his father had taken a knife, and Yitzhak says, you can shecht me, and I'm willing to be an offering for God. And then God said, no, I don't want this. And you have Rivka Imenu as a tzaddikus, who grew up in the house of Lavan, who grew up in Padan Aram, and grew up with a brother like a father like Besuel, grew up in this terrible, terrible situation, and you say to yourself, look at this tzaddikus, she married Yitzhak, look at this wonderful woman. And everybody looks at this couple and they say to themselves, what a couple. The power couple, tzaddikim, righteous people. Nobody knows people like that. They've had a child. You know why such righteous people have their children? Because Lavan gave them a blessing. Huh? Yeah? No, I don't think that's what I would say. Sometimes I meet people they've gotten some very big blessings from someone, and they come over to me and they say, can I get a blessing off you? And I'm like, what do you want from me? I'm just a little rabbi. You'll get blessings from somebody that can actually give you a blessing. He says, no, I'd like your blessing. If then the person had prosperity, and I turned around and I said to myself, I know I went to every rabbi in town, but it's my blessings that did it. Wouldn't you say, what an arrogant fellow? Who do you think you are? What, your blessings can really make a difference? Who do you think you are? Right? Here too, you say, you look at Rivka, you look at Yitzchak, you look at these righteous people, and Yitzchak is the son of Abraham Avinu, and God had promised Yitzchak, I promise you, Yitzchak, that you will have children, and from your children will come the Jewish nation. And then we turn around and we say, all that becomes irrelevant. It's Lavan's blessing. And that's so much so, and that's why I said Rivka had to be barren to first show, whoa. Lavan's blessing didn't have any effect. It's only after Yitzchak davened did she have a blessing. Now, it was an interesting comment because in the end of the day, Rivka was barren for a very, very long time. And I think, 20 years of being barren is a very, very intense way of bringing home the point that wasn't Lavan's blessing. It could have been 1 or 2 years. It didn't have to be 20 years. Having said that, but I think the point comes back to what we said before about the cynicism. The cynicism is that Rivka would have a child because of Lavan's blessing and not of the person that she is and not the person that Yitzhak is and not everybody else. And now we look at something else also, which is we spoke about Rivka and now we change it the other way around. We see the opposite to be true of Esav. Imagine growing up in Yakov Avinu's home. Can you imagine what it must have been like growing up in Yakov Avinu's home? Would you, in Yitzchak's home, would you expect an Esav to grow up in Yitzchak's home? Pardon?
What about rebellion?
No, so that's what I'm saying, but that's a very rebellious child. But not only a rebellious child, but a very rebellious child. Pardon? It does happen today. Yeah. No, so it's interesting. I mean, there's another commentary, but we're not going to go through the commentary for tonight. But there's another commentary by Rav Hirsch, a very interesting commentary that we could speak about. I mean, we could, let's speak about that commentary because it's very, very interesting. I found it extremely interesting, and it's also I have mentioned it before here, not on this shir, but in shul, and it's a big lesson talking about rebellion, and that is the following. Rav Hirsch says, the pasuk says, look at this verse. Verse 27. Yeah? Verse 27. Vayigdelu hana'arim, and the lads got older, and Esav became a man who knows how to hunt, a man of the field. The Yakov ishtam, and Yakov is a wholesome man, Yoshev Aholim, who would stay and spend his time in tents. Right? Meaning learning Torah. Says Rav Hirsch, do you know what happened? Do you know what happened over here? You know what Vayigdelu hana'arim means? They grew older? Says Rav Hirsch, you know what happened over here is that they received the same education. Yaakov and Esav were sent to the same yeshiva. Yaakov and Esav were given the same goals. Yaakov and Esav were given the same aspirations. And you cannot have the same goals. And you cannot have the same aspirations. And you cannot have the same yeshiva for a Yaakov and for an Esav. There are yeshivas that are geared towards Yaakov people, and there are yeshivas that are geared towards more chilled out individuals. And if you take people and you don't give them a chance, and you don't give them a choice, and you put them in an environment that is toxic for them, an environment that they cannot handle, an environment that is no good for them, what they do is they rebel. Yeah? And so if you take, for some boys, certain yeshivas, hi Phil, come on in. It is Fort Knox, almost getting into this, yeah. For some boys, you send them to yeshiva where they learn all day and they learn all night, and it's just, they're like a fish in water. It's the most amazing thing you can do for them. And some boys can only manage half a day, and some boys can only manage a few hours. And you have to realize that, and you have to recognize that, and you have to give them that latitude to be able to become the best at what they can manage. Because if you're not going to do that, you're going to crush that child. You're going to crush that individual, and you're going to say to that individual that doesn't really have the tools to be able to do it, we expect you to be just as good as him, right? And in the same way, MGS, Manchester Grammar School, is not for everybody. And in the same way, Withington High School is not for every girl. You need to have a certain amount of studiousness to yourself. You need to have a certain amount of zitzfleisch. You need to have a certain amount of brains. You need to be able to do it. Not everybody can handle MGS. That's just the way it is. Some people work harder. Some people don't have to work as hard there. But it's a very elite school. And it's not for everyone. And if you take the wrong person and you put them in that school, you know where you're going to end up with? An unhappy, unsatisfied misfit. And a child who feels what? Who feels a failure. Right? The poor child feels, do you know why he feels a failure? Because you've given him aspirations that he could never live up to. Take a child, a little child, I expect you to lift 500 pounds by the end of tomorrow. And if you don't, we'll beat the living daylights out of you. Oh, you can beat me now. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm not even going to wait till tomorrow. Just go here, right here. Right? What do you want from the kid? What do you want from him? How is he supposed to manage? How is this kid supposed to be able to shine? How is this kid supposed to be able to be good at what you want him to be good at? When you've not given him the chance. You've taken him and you put him into a cookie cutter, into a mold where he doesn't fit. And so they rebel. And once they rebel, then you're really in trouble. And it's often not about, these kids, that's the sad thing. Sometimes I sit with these kids and I sit with them and I say to myself, they're such nice kids. So many of these kids, if you talk to them on an individual level, they're intelligent. They're nice. They have what to say. Why do they have to turn into this antisocial being? And it's not so much their doing. Nobody grows up and says, you know what? When I grow up, I'd love to be a drunkard. Nobody grows up like that. That's not aspirations. Even people who grow up in the ghetto, sometimes they complain about that it's too hard to get out of it. The social mobility is such that if you grew up in a ghetto or if you grew up in Salford in a very, very deprived area, it's very hard to move up out of there. Yeah? Because you grew up with so much poverty and you grew up and you're not able to go to university, you're not able to move yourself forward, you're not able to do any of these things. It's very hard. Yeah? It's very, very, so it's not an aspiration that they have. But what's happened is that we've set the bar too high for them and then they feel like a failure again and again and again. And they sit in school or they sit in yeshiva and they don't understand what's going on. And they say to themselves, I must be stupid because my parents put me in this school and everybody here expects me to understand this. And everybody says, you're clever enough. Of course you know how this works. And I just don't get it. I must be stupid. I must be an idiot. I must be a no-goodnik. I must be whatever. You fill in the blank, and they feel awful, and they feel so terrible about themselves. And if this festers inside them for years and years and years, you know what ends up happening? These people become depressed people that can only feed their depression with narcotics, can only feed their depression by giving themselves substances that are no good for themselves or giving themselves something that they shouldn't really have. Why? Because they can't. Why do people take drugs? Why do people drink alcohol? It's to numb a pain. We understand it much better now. It's a pain that people have inside them that they can't numb other than drinking or taking drugs or doing something that's going to give them a high and going to get them away from this feeling of pain that they have. But who's given them that pain? We have. By putting them in a situation that they cannot manage. And we need to be more realistic with children. Because if you're not going to be realistic with them, you're not going to be able, that doesn't mean not having aspirations, but it means have aspirations that the child can manage.
But what if you have a child for whom rebellion is a necessary part of growing up?
So then you can find a place where they rebel, where they don't have to be as rebellious. Do you know what? I'll tell you an interesting story, and with this story we'll end. There was once a fellow that thought he said, that's it, I'm rebelling. I don't want to be from anymore. And there was a Rav who came to him and he says, you know what? What's wrong? He says, my father, he drives me crazy and I have to get out of this mold. I have to rebel. He says, do you love God? Yeah. Do you love Yiddishkeit? Yeah. Who are you angry at? And your father. He says, you know what? Your father is a serious Litvak. He's a Lithuanian Jew through and through. You really want to rebel? If you became Hasidish, you'd really show him. Yeah? And the fellow said to himself, that's great. I don't want to leave Yiddishkeit. I don't want to do that. He became Hasidish. His father couldn't bear it. So he had his rebellion, but he didn't have to leave HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There are other ways. It's a weird story, right? Yeah? There are other ways to get through it. Some people have a rebellious streak inside them, and you find a way to allow that streak to show. You have to find a way for that streak to come out and to be able to express itself. But just because you have a rebellious streak inside you does not mean you have to become some kind of antisocial animal, right? You don't have to become a substance-dependent person. You don't have to become somebody that's depressed and walks around aimlessly without anything and without any happiness. There are people that rebel are very, very happy people. Yeah, if you find the right balance. But we need to give our children the ability to be able to deal with life, and to deal with life in the way life sends them challenges, to set them up in a way that they can overcome the challenges instead of setting the bar too high for them and setting them up for failure. Because if you set them up for failure, then that's what's going to happen. They will fall and fall again and fall a third time, and they'll feel a failure, and in the end of the day, they will just feel like an absolute nothing. And we can't have that. Can't do that to our children. Okay, so much for tonight's share. I was going to say something else, but we didn't end up saying that. Gentlemen, thank you very much. To be continued, please God, next week. Thank you for joining us live as well.